This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Baruchim Abayim, welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha on Parshas Lecha, the Baal Haturim on Parshas Lecha. I'd like to share with you today 4 pockets of Baal Haturim on the Parsha. Let's begin with the opening comments of the Baal Haturim. The Baal Haturim observes the fact that the Parsha begins with the word Vayomer. Hashem's first communication to Abraham was Vayomer, not Vayedaber, not Vayagid, Vayomer. That is of note, says the Baal Haturim. The reason it begins with Vayomer is it uses the same expression used in the context of creation of the world. Ba'asara ma'amarois nivra ha'olam. The world was created with 10 statements, and that is because there's a very strong connection between the creation of the world and Hashem's communication with Abraham. Namely, the whole world was created only in the merit of Abraham. This is referencing that which Chazal say, Ela toldo shamayim va'aretz, Bihi baram, oisi ois Avraham. These are the products of heaven and earth, Bihi baram, that the world was created in the merit of Avraham. So since all Asara Mamoris were only B'schus Avraham, therefore, Vayomer Hashem el Avraham. This sort of connecting the communication to Avraham with the creation of the world. If we may humbly add, that the Gemara tells us in Avodah Zarah, that the first 2,000 years of creation were considered Yemei Toyu Vavayu, emptiness and void. And when Abraham came to the scene, it was 2,000 years of Torah. That means until Abraham, creation was nothing, was empty, was pointless. Abraham infused meaning, Torah, into all of creation. Therefore we can suggest, Vayomer Hashem al Avraham, all Asara Mamorish Nivra Olam are now justified. Because until now, the world was still Sayu Vavayu. It's only now that Abraham comes to the scene, it's Vayomer Elokim Yihar. That's why the Torah begins the Rabban Hashem's communication with Avraham with the word Vayomer. Let's go to the next comment of the Baal Haturim, Lech Lecha. Lech Lecha, numerically valued, Gematria 100. Says the Baal Haturim, 2 angles on this. Number 1, Hashem was saying, you know when ve'escha l'goy gadol, you know when you will have progeny, you know when Yitzchak will be born, Lech Lecha, when you turn 100 years old. Or, the Baal Haturim says, Avraham left to go to Eretz Yisrael at age 75. He lived till 175. That means these brachas of va'avarechacha v'agad l'shemech v'yei bracha will be extant for 100 years from your age 75 till 175. I want to share with you really a remarkable approach that I think we could glean from the Baal Haturim here in the beginning of the Parsha. And this is really based on an article that was sent to me today by Rabbi Sonny Cohen, who printed 2 svarim on Birchas Kohanim, and most of these sources come from the introduction to his Sefer, and we're just going to add on 1 Baal Haturim from this Parsha. You know, Rashi tells us on this pasuk, V'heyei bracha, that means Hashem was investing bracha to Avram Avinu, and he was saying, the brachos are given biyadcha. Ad achshav till now haya biyadi. God says, I had the capacity to give brachos. Beirachti la'adam v'noach. I blessed Adam and Noach. But me'achshav ata tevarech es asher tachmas. From now on, you can bless whoever you want. So Avram is given the capacity to give brachos. What exactly is this capacity? What are these brachos? Very interesting. When it comes to Birchas Kohanim, there's a tefillah the Kohanim say when they're oikar raglav, when they sort of position themselves to go to the duchen. They say, "Ratzum ofanach Hashem lekeinu shetehei bracha zu shetzivisanu levarach zam l'yisrael bracha shalema." It should be a complete bracha. Interesting, bracha shalema. Now this tefillah is sourced in the Gemara and Sotah on Daf Lamed Beis, but the Beis Yosef in Siman Kuf Chaf Ches asks, the Gemara does not say the expression bracha shalema. However, the Beis Yosef says it is a correct nusach. Rabbi Sani Cohen points out, where else do we have this phraseology, bracha shlema? We say it in Birchas Hamazon. Ba'maroi milamdu aleihem v'yalinus chushatem meshmer shalom yisrael bracha meis Hashem tzang leishem ne'esachen b'seichtem be'enei aleikim v'adam. And we say that the Rebbeinu Shalom k'moi shenizbaruchu avoseinu avizuviyah b'akum b'vracha shalema v'noimar amen. So that means the bracha that God blessed the avos is also called bracha shlema. Birchas kohanim is called bracha shlema, and the blessing God gave the avos is bracha shlema. And certainly, there must be a commonality there. Now the truth is, Chazal tell us, the Baal Haturim brings in Parshas Nasai, that the Birchas Kohanim was given to Klal Yisrael in the schus of the Avos. Yivarechecha in the schus of Hashem beirachas Avram Makal. Ya'er in the schus that Hashem illuminated the eyes of Yitzchak after Yitzchak expired at the Akedah. Yisa is Keneged Yaakov, Vayisa Yaakov Ragla. And as we know, if we don't have Kohanim, we say, we say, and we say in response to the Yivarechecha, Ya'er Nisa, and many say, Sfardim say, and some have this minhag, Amen, Ken Yehi Ratzain, B'schos Avraham Avinu, Ken Yiratzim B'schos Yitzchak Avinu, Ken Yiratzim B'schos Yaakov Avinu. This is based on the medrash that these brachos were given in the zechus of the avos. Medrash Rabbah brings in Parshas Lech Lecha that where were we zoicha to Birchas Kohanim from? Rabbi Yehuda says from Avraham, the koi savarchas b'nei Yisrael b'schos koi yia zaracha. Rabbi Nechemia says it was Chus Yitzchak v'ani v'hanar nelcha ad koi, and the Rabbanan say from Yaakov koi soymar lebeis Yaakov. Incredibly, there's a Rabbeinu Bechaye that when Yaakov wrestled with the Malach of Esav, and it says that the Malach blessed Yaakov vayavarech oisoi sham. What bracha did the Malach give Yaakov? Says the Medrash Birchas Kohanim. What? The Malach gave Yaakov Birchas Kohanim? But the Malach was only affirming the brachos that Yitzchak gave Yaakov. So that implies if the Malach blessed Yaakov with Birchas Kohanim, then the brachos that Yitzchak gave Yaakov must have been Birchas Kohanim. And in fact, the Medrash Agada in the Buber edition, he brings that Yitzchak said, bring me catch, ba'avur asher yivarechecha, so I could give you Birchas Kohanim. So that means the bracha Yitzchak gave Yaakov was Birchas Kohanim. What was the bracha that Yitzchak got from Avram? Now Rashi brings that Avram did not want to give Yitzchak the bracha directly because he knew Esav would come out of him. So after Avram passed away, Hashem blessed Yitzchak, and that bracha that Yitzchak had, we're learning, is Birchas Kohanim. That means Avraham had Birchas Kohanim? What source is there that Avram had Birchas Kohanim? This means the whole concept that Hashem had bracha, and He blessed Adam, and He blessed Noach, and this is the bracha shalema that encompasses all bracha. This bracha then is Birchas Kohanim because that's the bracha the Malach gave Yaakov, which means that was the bracha Yitzchak gave Yaakov, which means that was the bracha that Avraham didn't want to give Yitzchak, that Hashem gave Yitzchak. What evidence is there that Avraham was invested with Birchas Kohanim? That's what we come to the Baal Haturim in the beginning of this week's Parsha. Says the Baal Haturim, Va'avarechecha, V'escha l'goy gadol, Va'avarechecha, Va'agadlo shemecha. 3 brachos. What are these 3 brachos? 3 brachos are the 3 brachos of Birchas Kohanim. Amazing. The Baal Haturim says the brachos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Avraham was Birchas Kohanim. V'escha, Va'avarechecha, Va'agadla. Says the Baal Haturim, look on the chaf of Va'avarechecha, of Mivarechecha. There are 3 tagin on the chaf. 3 times 20 is 60. Keneged the 60 letters of Birchas Kohanim. Now we understand the comments of the Baal Haturim of the next pasuk. Va'avarcha mivarechecha. Hashem says, I will bless those who bless you. That refers to, I will bless the Kohanim that are mivarech your children. Birchas Kohanim man dachar shmei. Why is Hashem in this context telling Abraham that I will bless the Kohanim who bless Klal Yisrael? Who said anything about Kohanim blessing Klal Yisrael? That's what the Rebbeinu Shem just conveyed to Abraham. He just gave Abraham Birchas Kohanim. So lahashlam es ha'inyan, the Rebbeinu Shem is saying, you're going to be mevarech your descendants, your children, with Birchas Kohanim, but I will then come bless you and the Kohanim who bless the people. So this is a little bit of the root and the source of Berachos Kohanim, and the words of the Baal Haturim in the opening of the Parsha really shed much light on this. I'd like to conclude by sharing with you an amazing insight on the Baal Haturim Parak Yud Gimel Pasuk Yud Aleph that my dear friend Harav Moshe Bamberger shared with me yesterday, and this is really a remarkable insight on the Psukim Parak Yud Gimel Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayivchar Loit is called Kikar HaYarden. Loit chose for himself the whole plain of the Yarden. Vayisa Loit Mikedem, and Loit traveled on from the east. Vayiparadu Ishmei Alachiv, and each man separated from his brother. Avram Yashav, the next pasuk says, Avram dwelled in Canaan. V'lo Yashav Arei Kikar Vayela Ad Sadoim. Says the Baal Haturim, Soifei Tevos, the final letters of the last words of pasuk Yud Aleph, Ish Me'al Achiv, plus the first word of the next pasuk, Shin Lamed Vav Mem, namely Shalom. That the Soifei Tevos of Ish Me'al Achiv Avram are Shalom, peace. Says the Baal Haturim, Loimar Lecha, this teaches you, Kedei Lasoi Shalom Nispardu, that they separated in order to make peace. Okay, seems like an innocuous comment. They separated to make peace. But laden in these words of the Baal Haturim is really a very profound message. That this comes to teach us that there are situations in life that perhaps in order to make peace, they cannot be reconciled by just learning to get along. Sometimes, in order to make peace, it requires preda, it requires separation. And not every occasion of strife can be solved with Hine ma tov u'manoim shavas achem gam yachad. Not every situation of a difficulty can be worked out where the people will be in close proximity. Sometimes the way to achieve peace is Vayipardu Ishmei al Achiv. In fact, Rabbi Bamberger pointed out as well from Reb Shlomo Zalman Breuer, who was married the youngest daughter of Reb Shamshon Fall Hirsch. I had the schus to be at his kever in Frankfurt. Interestingly, he was born in Hungary, in Pupa, and he lived from 1850 to 1926. He points out in his Torah that if you look in Parshas Pinchas, Hineni Nosin Lais Brisi Shalom, we know the letter Vav in Shalom is a Vav Ketia, which indicates sometimes to achieve peace, you need to sever the ties. And that's a practical lesson, a profound lesson, and important to recognize that not all the time can we have both parties clashing and somehow still being able to work it out in close proximity. Sometimes it has to be Ish Me'al Achiv Avram Vayipardu. It has to be separation. Rabbi Bamberger pointed out, perhaps that is why the Soifei Tevos are not all in the same pasuk. It's Ish Me'al Achiv, Soif pasuk, Avram in a different pasuk, to indicate that the peace was only achieved in the complete separation of Avraham. There are different ways to make peace, and this is one of the more drastic methods, but the correct method under the circumstances. So here we have 4 offerings of the Baal Haturim. Vayomer in the context of Avram, indicating this was a new creation. The numerical value of Lech Lecha, the significance of Berachos Kohanim in the history of the brachos of the Avos and Klal Yisrael, and finally the separation of Avram and Lot led to enduring peace. Wishing everyone a wonderful week, and Parshas Lech Lecha Haba Alinu L'Taiva.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.